Good afternoon, everyone. This is Patrick Gray speaking. Welcome again to all of you for joining us for this afternoon's webinar on virtual communications. For those of you that I don't know, although I was looking at the attendance list, I think I know just about everyone, but there's always a few. Again, my name is Patrick Gray. I'm the Executive Director of the Catholic Community Foundation, and welcome to this webinar today. This is a series of webinars that we have done now over the last number of weeks since this pandemic started, now 6 weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken, at least in terms of our remote access and parishes being closed and the like. But we're grateful that you're all with us today. We're again joined by pastors, business managers, finance council leaders, and others. So we're grateful for your participation in today's webinar. We're joined again by the folks from CCS who have been helping us with this special initiative called Secure. And we're going to dive into that in a minute. I'm going to turn it over to Lauren Costello, who is with us from CCS, who will kind of walk us through the agenda and some of the items we're going to discuss over the next 30 minutes. And we do plan to keep us to that time frame accordingly. But before we begin, I'm going to ask Father Mike Matus to lead us in prayer. Father Matus is the pastor of Our Lady of Victory in Talmadge. And with that, I'll turn it over to Father Mike to lead today's webinar.
With today being May 1st, not only the Feast of St. Joseph, but the beginning of a month that we call to mind the role that the Blessed Virgin has played in the Church, as well as later on this afternoon, a renewal of the consecration of the United States to the care of the Blessed Virgin Mary. I found a prayer that Pope Francis composed, so I thought we would use that. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. O Mary, you shine continuously on our journey as a sign of salvation and hope. We entrust ourselves to you, health of the sick, who at the cross united with Jesus' pain, keeping your faith firm. You, salvation of the Roman people, know what we need, and we trust that you will provide for those needs so that, as at Cana of Galilee, joy and celebration may return after this moment of trial. Help us, Mother of Divine Love, to conform ourselves to the will of the Father and to do what Jesus tells us. He took our sufferings upon himself and burdened himself with our sorrows to bring us through the cross to the joy of the resurrection. Amen. In the name of the Father,
Amen,
Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thanks, Father Mike. Greatly appreciate it. Margaret, do you want to go over some of the logistics and housekeeping items before we dive in?
Sure, happy to do so. Hi, everybody. My name is Margaret Fleming. I'm from CCS Fundraising. Before we get started, we'll just go over a few housekeeping items. Here's a picture, the sample screenshot of your attendee interface. You should see something that looks like this with a control panel at the side of your computer screen. You might have joined the presentation using your computer's speaker system by default, which means that if you can hear music through your computer, you should also be able to hear the presentation. If you have trouble hearing and you'd prefer to join by telephone, just refer to the confirmation email that you received with the dial-in number and the meeting ID. You'll have the opportunity to submit text questions to today's presenters by typing them into the questions box on your control panel. You can send in the questions at any time during the presentation, and given that it's a 30-minute presentation, we will follow up with after the webinar to address your questions individually by email. You'll also receive the recordings and slides from the session via email in the coming days. Thanks so much. I'll pass it back over to Patrick.
Thanks, Margaret. And again, whether this is your first webinar or this is your second or third, because we've offered a series of these over the last number of weeks or months, as a month or so plus, we're grateful for your being with us today. And certainly our goal with this Secure program is to help our parishes in every way possible. We have three objectives. One is to connect foundation staff with our parishes to better understand your needs and to provide the service that we can. Two, to develop customized plans in consultation with pastors and parishes for each parish to recover lost revenue, whether it be from offertory or, as we're learning more and more, other lost revenue, whether it be a festival or perhaps a benefit or a fun run or something like that. And the third objective is to build a stronger system of online communication tools to help sustain parishes long beyond the certain crisis that's upon us. So that's kind of the hope and the objective that we want to accomplish through the Secure program. Today's focus and webinar will be on building virtual parish communities, as I said at the outset. And so we want to spend this time connecting you with some ideas, but also connecting you with one another. A number of pastors have been generous in parishes to share some of their own best practices that we want to provide to you today, as well as connect you with some of vendor resources that are available to many of our parishes who work with trusted partners. So that's the objective of what we want to accomplish today. Of course, we always welcome your feedback in this process. If you have a particular topic you would like us to address beyond what we're doing and beyond some of the information, let us know. Again, we're here to serve you, and that is the purpose of our work in this Secure program, and certainly the work of the Foundation in general. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Lauren Costello from CCS, who will guide us through today's agenda.
Hi, everyone. It's nice to have everyone on the call this morning, or this afternoon, I should say. So here's a quick look at what we're going to cover in today's presentation. We're just going to give a quick update on where we are in our work to date with the Secure program, but we'll spend most of this half hour hearing from some specific examples from our pastors. In particular, we want to highlight some of the solutions to challenges that our pastors across the diocese have found in this virtual community, virtual gathering space. So some of our pastors will offer some perspective on how they've been able to build virtual communities while we've been unable to gather publicly. So let's get started with an update. So as of the start of this program, since April 17th, we've met so far as of today with 65 parishes one-on-one to identify needs, hear what's going really well across our parishes, and we've heard some really great stories, as well as identify some individual parish plans for parishes who need a little bit of help over the next few weeks. Across the board, we've continued to emphasize the following key points. Obviously, I think this comes as no surprise to the folks on the call. Leaning on your parish team is critical. It's so important that no pastor should address challenges alone. Parishioners also need to hear from our parishes in an open, transparent manner what the challenges the parishes are facing at this time as a result of the crisis. Hopefully folks can mute their microphone if they're not on mute currently.
Lauren, just a quick note, maybe mute your computer as well. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, sure.
Mute your computer. Yep, there you go.
Done. Can everyone still hear me?
Yep, perfect.
I'm going to assume yes. So the last point that I'll make here is that folks also want to connect back with their parishes. I'll quote Bob Hickey in a meeting that we had this morning that, absence makes the heart grow fonder. And I think more than anything, we're all just looking for ways to connect back with faith communities at this time. And pastors are honestly finding great ways to check in with their parishioners and hear how they're doing, particularly over these next few weeks. So in advance of hearing from our pastors, I want to share just some best practices that we've seen across the diocese and generally. We're socially distant, but not spiritually distant, of course. And these are just some things to consider when you're considering your own, creative ways of building a virtual community. So obviously, building a roadmap ahead of time is something that I think we are working with a number of our parishes on now. Based on your parish's technological capabilities, I think the important point here is to know that while you're starting to think about, ways to connect virtually, it really doesn't have to be perfect. And I would even make the point that, folks like to see parishes working out the details in real time. And if there's a little lag in your video or a little, poorly edited something or other, I really think, those things are what make this process human. So creating clear instructions for how your parishioners can access your virtual communities is really important as well. we've seen some really great examples of pastors walking their parishioners through the process of logging on to a Zoom call or a Google Hangout. And for those who might be unfamiliar with these tools for the first time, I think it gives a little, sense of safety that we're all learning how to connect virtually at this time. The other point I'll make is communicating through multiple channels is really important. I think often we think, if we're going to host a Zoom call, after Mass or host a coffee hour or something to that effect, that the notification should go out, through email. But I'd invite you to think about if there are a few different ways that you can communicate with your parishioners. So through a written letter, through an email, a newsletter, text messaging, using all of those channels to get the word out is better than using just one, obviously. And then we'll talk about this more in the examples that we have today, but fostering a sense of community beyond the celebration of Mass. So using things like virtual coffee hours, prayer groups, Bible studies, that makes folks feel connected in the way that they would, if we were gathering together in person. And obviously, as you're finding now, the little troubleshooting tech issues that come up inevitably when you're having these webinars and meetings, practicing your virtual event ahead of time or gathering ahead of time prior to the launch of your event just makes sure that things run as smoothly as possible. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Father Johns at St. John Vianney Parish, and I think he has some guests with him as well, to talk about some of the ways in which St. John Vianney in Menor is building some alternative events and points of connection for their parishioners. Father Johns?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me all right? Yes. So I have a staff of 8 people on my pastoral staff, and when this all began, I asked each of them if they would try and do something to connect with people through social media. So I have 3 priests, I have a deacon, I have a business manager, 2 pastoral ministers, and a music director. So everybody has tried to do something. So, we live stream masses, we do rosary, Stations of the Cross, we do music. And one of the things that's been most successful is I have 2 very talented vicars. I have Father Morris and Father Dober, and they started something called Visiting with the Vicars. So I'm going to have them tell you about it. That's probably the most successful thing that we have going here at the parish right now. So here's Father Dober.
Yeah, this is Father Dober. I would say, Father Peter and I were thinking about what can we do to contribute to the virtual community. And one of the things we realized is a lot of times when there's a video of just one person talking, that people tune out from that pretty quickly. And so if you can have a video where there's dialogue, people like that a lot more. It's easier to watch and follow. And so Father Peter and I get along really well, and we just kind of have fun. And we talk about serious topics, but we also talk about lighthearted stuff. And people have really appreciated the lighthearted approach as well, because there's a lot of stress going on, and they like to be able to laugh with us. But then recently we've been teaching them about the liturgy, so they also like engaging in deeper realities too.
This is Father Peter Morris. So what we're doing isn't anything necessarily new. It first struck my thought to do it when I was watching right before Mass stream started. Everybody was logging in and saying, "Good morning, everyone," and they're wishing like hello to each other. And like really, as you mentioned, creating like a digital gathering, a community. That's what this was meant to be. Was supposed to be like something very interpersonal with people who are watching. One of the things we often do is we ask for people to put in comments. They don't always do it, like we may have something silly or something fun, but we ask people to add a comment or to ask questions in our particular video. We do get a lot of comments, and like responding to those comments is huge because it just helps build that engagement, that personal connection that people are feeling with the show in and of itself. Father Marty, I tell you, we get a lot of emails as well.
Yeah, we do.
Like people take the time apart from just watching the video to email us questions or appreciation. So anytime that we take advantage of like trying to invite people to make comments, or similarly just talk about topics people connect with, no matter how fun, silly, stupid, or serious they may be, you're driving engagement. You're helping people who are watching you through a video screen feel connected to you, which is like really, for me, one of the biggest things I think we've done.
So they do it every Monday, Wednesday, Friday for about a half hour. And literally there's hundreds of people that wait for it. all 3 days. So I know people are enjoying it, and it's getting people very connected. So it seems to be working very well for us.
Really great. Thank you so much. And folks, if you have any questions that you want to direct at, at any of our guests who speak today, please feel free to put them in the chat box, and we'll be sure to connect you to them as well, because a lot of this process is, connecting parishes with other parishes who are doing something that maybe you might want to set up at your own home parish. So with that, I'll also hand it off to our next guest, Father Tom Draga, Church of the Resurrection in Solon, who's really been leveraging the use of video and in particular for parishes who may not have the tech capability to live stream Mass, because obviously that takes a lot of bandwidth. Father Draga has had some creative success with posted videos, and I in particular really love the virtual tour over the course of an 8-part series of the church. But Father Draga, I wonder if you want to share a little bit more about what you've been up to at Church of the Resurrection.
Sure. So every day we offer something to all of our parishioners. So on the weekend, obviously, it's the live stream of the Mass. And then on Monday, we do a midday prayer break. That's also live streamed. And Tuesday and Thursday, our 2 pastoral associates will do a reflection for the day. And I see on the screen the reflection that was offered for yesterday. And then on Fridays, during the Lenten season, we were doing Stations of the Cross, and we were doing them in our church, and so that people could see the stations in our church. They found that to be very helpful in terms of seeing what was familiar to them, as opposed to going on, the internet and just finding stations on the internet. They found that comfortable to see their own church and to hear the voices of the pastoral staff. And then on Wednesday, right now we're doing on Fridays a virtual tour using the elements similar to what Marty and Peter are saying about kind of teaching about the liturgy, using the space to do some catechesis. So we've broken that down into an 8-part series, and it's an opportunity to give kind of a reflection about the altar, the ambo, the statues, et cetera, the stained glass windows, et cetera. And then on Wednesday, we're doing what I'm calling a Zoom coffee break. So we use the platform of Zoom, but I suppose you could use any one of those platforms. And after our 8:30 a.m. Mass, we invite our daily Mass people. So I send out about 2 to 3 days in advance of Wednesday an email with the link to the Zoom meeting so that they can log on at 9:15. And for about a half hour, they just connect with one another. What I've found both at Resurrection as well as any other place I've been is that daily Mass crowd, they seem to have a real tight-knit community. They may not always know each other's names, but they know who each other is, and so they like to be able to stay in touch, and this has been a wonderful way for them to connect. And many of them are older, but I've been so edified by their ingenuity in figuring out the internet. So I would never let that be a deterrent. They really do seem to know how to figure it out. And if they don't, they find their son or daughter or a grandchild who can help them figure it out.
Wonderful. Thank you, Father. So I'm just gonna walk us through some other examples that we picked up along the way, in our conversations with parishes as well. So I want to highlight this for parishes who maybe, are wondering how can I set up a live stream without, the big high tech equipment, or how can I connect with folks virtually if, we don't have as great a bandwidth at our parish sometimes. I want to highlight what's going on at St. Jude Elyria and the Elyria Catholic Cluster. So we spoke with Father Scalco earlier this week, and they're doing some really great work to their St. Jude Church Facebook is really active. They're posting probably on a, every other couple days or every day on their own parish, but they're also posting on the Catholic Cluster Facebook as well. But I think the important point here is between the three parishes, St. Jude, St. Mary, and St. Agnes, they're spreading the responsibility of live streaming Mass, of posting content, and of sharing updates. And I invite you to think about the parishes in your immediate regional area that perhaps you could partner with and share some of both not only the content, so you have some different folks and different faces connecting with your parishioners, but it boosts the connectivity in the immediate area as well. So I'd invite you to take a look at the Catholic Cluster Facebook page. It's really active, looks really great. I also would share a great example from St. Peter Parish, Loudonville. So in this case, Father had set up a series of events on just a simple calendar page on their parish website. And as you can see here, folks can click on the link. In this case, it was a Bible study at 7:30 p.m. And it was really, folks just clicked the Join Microsoft Teams meeting, which, if folks have access to a computer and can get to the parish website, and then if you on the parish side have just a simple iPhone set up, on a tripod, this is really all it needs to be. Or you can, you can talk through your laptop in the way that I'm talking now. But this is a simple way for folks to gather informally and connect spiritually as well. And I thought the layout was nice because folks can sort of see what's happening over the course of the next week or so. And then some other just, more creative communities that we've seen around our diocese that we've picked up along the way in our conversations. Divine Word in Kirtland, Father Dave Woost is hosting, one of his parish staff, I believe, is hosting a spring sing-along. Some Bible trivia is taking place, and I believe he's also launching a book study. This is one of my favorite examples. It comes as no surprise. I think this is incredible. The evangelist, Father Kevin Elbert, is hosting a weekly karate session with his parishioners. I don't know how many people on the call have any karate skills. I know that I have absolutely none, but perhaps you can pick up some tips and pointers from Father over there in Lakewood. And then our pastor, Father Mike Matus, who kicked us off with prayer, is also hosting a nightly prayer with a friend, and that's posted on his calendar as well. And I wanted to highlight some of the great work that he's doing. Simple, easy, no big tech needs, no big staff needs, but ways for folks to connect in a meaningful way. Great. So with the last few minutes that we have here, I want to just share some thinking and how to get started for those who maybe would like to implement some or a few of these ideas. There are 3 questions to ask yourself or to sit down with your parish staff and say, okay, well, first, what kind of virtual community could we build with the resources that we have available to us now? And that could be anything from a laptop and with some good speakers to, an iPhone with a tripod, and thinking about some of those examples like a town hall, 15-minute coffee with the pastor, as Father Draga shared, or some more creative ideas coming out of St. John Vianney. Number 2, this is an important piece here. How can we make this accessible to all parishioners? I wouldn't discount folks getting online and having the tools that they need to get online. Many grandparents and folks who maybe we would think are not as tech savvy, in this day and age are, getting onto Facebook and are a little bit more tech savvy than I think we give them credit for. But I think there are some really great examples out there of sharing instructions and making it as easy as possible. And certainly we can be helpful with this as well, making it as easy as possible for folks to log on. So going back to the St. Peter Loudonville example, all they have to do is log on to the parish website, click the link through Microsoft Teams, and they're in the meeting. Zoom and Google Hangouts have a similar, easy functionality as well.
Hey, Lauren, this is Patrick. Let me jump in there too. I would
it doesn't have to be perfect, and it doesn't have to be high tech. Start with the tools that you're comfortable with or what your parish is already using. If you've been using Zoom to, gather with your family and catch up with them, then great, stick with that. If you prefer Google Hangouts or that's what you've used before and are comfortable with, then use what you're comfortable with. There's no perfect answer for these types of things. I really think it's just about what's simple and straightforward.
Hey, Lauren, this is Patrick.
Also some resources that we'll be providing to you as a follow-up to this webinar. So we've developed some easy step-by-step guides to get you started, a YouTube guide for logging on, how to stream through Facebook Live, and we've also developed a social media guide to give you maybe some good ideas for what a week in the life of a parish might look like. In addition, we're here, your secure team is here and prepared to help build your communities and brainstorm solutions over the next few weeks as well. And one thing that I'd like to highlight, we're building this matrix of vendor resources. So many of you are probably already working with vendors like OSV or LPI for your envelope or your website, or maybe your e-giving. But hopefully, we can dig in a little bit deeper and see what other capabilities or product offerings the vendors are offering that maybe you're not aware of. So that'll be coming to you in the next week or so. Second to last, I just want to highlight how you could get in touch with us. The Diocese Office of Communications is a great resource to folks who want to gather some advice, best practices, and just talk through some of the strategies that we've talked through today. And then obviously Patrick Grace, who opened up our meeting today, and myself, Lauren Costello, we're here any time of the day to help you think through these items also. So we have 2 minutes left. We promised that we would stick to a half hour here for these webinars. I want to highlight that we have 2 webinars coming up in the next week. So next Wednesday, May 6th at 3 p.m., we'll be hosting another half-hour webinar focused around social media and online ministry. And then the week following on Wednesday, 3 p.m., we'll be talking about revenue recovery strategies. Before we end, I just want to hand it back over to Patrick in case he wants to add any other notes. And with that, I'll just say thank you and look forward to connecting with you soon.
Thanks, Lauren. I appreciate it. Just a final concluding comment. Again, thanks everyone for your participation today. We greatly appreciate it. And don't hesitate to contact us. I know we're working with each of you. We have the relationship managers working with individual parishes, as Lauren said at the beginning, and we want to help in any way we can. So certainly would extend that. The last thing I would offer, Lauren mentioned about some of our older parishioners and their ability to get on some of these virtual tools. Earlier this week, we hosted a webinar with Father Dan Schlegel and some of our trusted beneficiary or benefactors, rather, I should say, donors. And, some of our older parishioners, they really want to try this out, and you have to be willing to be a little patient with them. I think, as we all know, it's a virtue that we've all come to become very good at over the last 6 weeks, or some of us better than others, I might add. But I think it was amazing watching people try to use some of these tools because they want to be part of a community. They want to hear from you, their parishes, their pastors, their parish leaders, et cetera. So don't be afraid to try some of it out. I know it can be a little clunky and a little bit cumbersome at times. But even the older folks really want to use some of the tools to connect. They're doing it with their grandkids, certainly, and other relatives and friends throughout the area and throughout the country. So don't be hesitant to try and test new things. Again, it's a tool that all of us are trying to, or tools rather, all of us are trying to connect with one another during this current crisis. So I would just end with that. And I think that takes us to 12:30. Again, hopefully you will join us all next week. Again, May 6th, we'll send out a reminder. But thanks everyone for joining us, and have a great weekend. God bless.